The average Social Security check is small, and in most of America, it is gone the second the bills hit the mailbox. But there are towns where a retiree can actually live comfortably on around $1,500 a month. Total. Everything. In this video, I'm going to show you 10 real U.S. towns where you can retire on $1,500 a month, a paid-off home or modest rent, groceries, the lights, the doctor, the basics, without going broke and without selling everything you own. A river town sitting in the single cheapest state in the entire country. A desert town so drowning in sunshine the snowbirds never left. And the number one spot where your check stops being survival and quietly turns into a real, settled life. And do not skip around. Every single town hides one detail you are going to want, and number one is the best of them all. So stay with me all the way to the end. 10 towns, about $1,500 a month, real numbers on Social Security alone. I checked twice. Quick, honest note before we start, because this matters. This is general information, not financial advice, and your real budget depends on your health, your housing situation, and your habits. So treat every figure here as a starting point and verify it for your own life before you move a single box. Now, the whole game on $1,500 a month comes down to just two numbers: housing and taxes. Crush those two, and everything else, the groceries, the gas, the little dinner out, quietly fits inside the check. Every town on this list crushes at least one of those two numbers, and the very best ones crush both. Cheap homes plus low or zero state income tax. That is the bridge. That is the whole video. Subscribe if you want the America a fixed income can actually afford. The towns nobody on cable television will ever tell you about. 10 towns. Let's count it down. Number 10. McAllen, Texas. Back in 1904, the railroad came pushing south through the brush country of the Rio Grande Valley, and a man named John McAllen handed over a slice of his ranch land for a depot. And almost overnight, a sleepy stretch of mesquite and cactus became a town with his name on it. For years, it was just citrus and cotton and cattle, baking under that South Texas sun, the kind of place the rest of the country drove right past. Then the snowbirds discovered it, and the retirees, and suddenly that forgotten border town quietly became one of the most affordable places to grow old in America. Here is why it opens our list. McAllen has long carried one of the lowest costs of living of any city in the entire United States, and Texas, famously, has no state income tax at all, so every dollar of that Social Security check stays yours. Modest homes and rentals here can land far below the national average, and on $1,500 a month, a paid-off little house, plus groceries and utilities, genuinely pencils out. And there is real texture to the life here, not just cheap numbers. The winters are warm and dry. January afternoons in the 70s, while the rest of the country shovels snow, which is exactly why the winter Texans flood in every year. There are major hospitals and a growing medical district right in town, so healthcare is not a 2-hour drive like in a lot of cheap places. Fresh Mexican produce sells for almost nothing at the markets. The golf is cheap, and the whole valley runs on a slow, friendly, bilingual rhythm. And let me put a real budget picture on it, because that is what you came here for. Picture a paid-off little place, or a modest rental. Your property tax is softened by Texas homestead breaks for seniors. Your groceries cut in half by those border town markets. And not $1 skimmed off the top by a state income tax. And suddenly, $1,500 stops feeling like a ceiling and starts feeling like room to breathe. The flea markets, the cheap clinics, the dollar tacos that are genuinely better than anything you will pay $10 for up north. It all stacks in your favor. People come down for one winter to test it and quietly never leave. And once you see the numbers, you understand exactly why. Pro: dirt cheap, warm all winter, and no state income tax. Con: the summers are brutally hot and humid, and you are far out on the southern border, a long way from big northern cities. Next, a college town sitting in the single most affordable state in the entire country, where the rent will make you blink twice. Number 9. Hattiesburg, Mississippi. In 1882, a lumber and railroad man named Captain William Hardy was camped in the pine forests of South Mississippi, plotting where two rail lines would cross, and he named the spot after his wife, Hattie. That is the whole origin: a railroad man, a stand of longleaf pine, and a love letter in the form of a town. They called it the Hub City because everything connected there, and over a century later, it still does. What grew up around that crossing was a genuine college town. The University of Southern Mississippi anchors it, and college towns age beautifully for retirees because they come with culture, cheap entertainment, and good hospitals without big city prices. And here is the headline: Mississippi is consistently ranked the single most affordable state in America to live in, and Hattiesburg sits right in that sweet spot. Home prices and rents here are among the lowest you will find anywhere in the country, which means a retiree on $1,500 a month is not scraping. There is actually room left over after housing for a real-life verify. The texture here is green and easy. Tall pines, mild winters where snow is a rumor, university theater and football and free lectures, and a walkable historic downtown with brick storefronts. Forest General Hospital is a serious regional medical center, so you are not gambling on your health to save money. The pace is slow, southern, and unhurried. And here is the budget reality, because Mississippi being the cheapest state is not just a headline, it is the line items. A modest home here can cost less than a single year of rent in a coastal city. Your utilities stay low because the winters barely bite, and Mississippi does not tax retirement income or Social Security at the state level, so your check arrives whole. Verify. On $1,500 a month, after that low housing payment, there is genuinely money left for the football tickets, the church suppers, the grandkids' visits, the things that make a retirement feel like a life instead of a holding pattern. Pro. Rock-bottom cost of living and that lively, cultured college town energy. Con. The summers are hot and swampy humid, and in the rural stretches, healthcare access can thin out fast. Next, a desert town so sunny that people literally moved there for the weather alone. Number 8. Yuma, Arizona. Long before it was a snowbird paradise, Yuma was a crossing, the one narrow point where the mighty Colorado River could be forded, and whoever controlled it controlled the road to California. The Spanish came, then the steamboats, then the territorial prison in 1876, a stone hellhole so brutal in the desert heat the outlaws called it the Hellhole, and you can still walk its cells today. That same punishing sun that once tortured prisoners is now, plot twist, the entire reason people retire here. Because Yuma is officially one of the sunniest places on the entire planet. The sun shines here something like 90% of all daylight hours, more than almost anywhere on Earth. And the money follows the sun. Arizona has relatively low property taxes, affordable homes and parks, and a decades-old snowbird culture that keeps costs down for fixed-income retirees. On $1,500 a month, a modest home or a spot in a 55-plus community here is very real. The texture is pure, dry desert living. Winter is glorious, month after month of 70-degree blue sky perfection, which is why the population literally doubles in winter as the RVs roll in. The air is bone dry, which a lot of arthritic joints quietly love. The produce is cheap because Yuma grows most of America's winter lettuce, and there is a regional medical center in town. And the budget math here has a twist most people miss. The snowbird culture itself keeps your costs down. Decades of retirees rolling in have built out cheap 55-plus parks, lot rentals, and modest homes priced for fixed incomes, not for tech millionaires. Arizona does not tax Social Security at the state level. The property taxes are gentle, and your heating bill in winter is basically nothing because winter is the good season. On $1,500 a month, you trade the brutal summer for a winter that the rest of the country would pay a fortune for. And a lot of folks here simply go north for July and August, then come right back. Pro. Endless sunshine, dry, healthy air, low taxes, and a built-in retiree community. Con. The summers are genuinely dangerous heat. regularly screaming past 110 degrees. Next, we leave the desert for green Appalachian River country, and the home prices there will sound like a misprint. Number 7. Parkersburg, West Virginia. There is an island in the Ohio River just off Parkersburg, and in 1805, a wealthy Irishman named Harmon Blennerhassett built a glittering mansion on it, and then got tangled in Aaron Burr's wild scheme to carve out his own empire in the West. The plot collapsed, Blennerhassett fled, the mansion later burned, and the man died broke. But the town on the riverbank survived, boomed on oil and gas, filled up with grand Victorian homes, and then time and the economy moved on, and left all those beautiful old houses behind at prices that will genuinely stop you cold. Because Parkersburg quietly carries one of the lowest costs of living in the entire United States, and you can find solid historic homes here for a fraction of what the same house would cost almost anywhere else. We are talking real, full-sized older homes at prices that sound like a typo, which is exactly what makes $1,500 a month stretch so far. The texture is classic small city Appalachia. The Ohio River rolls right past downtown with a riverfront park and trails. The old brick architecture is gorgeous. The people are famously friendly and rooted, and there is a local hospital, so you are covered. 4 real seasons: green summers, colorful falls, and, yes, gray, cold winters. Let me make the budget concrete, because this is where Parkersburg quietly wins. When a solid older home costs less than a new pickup truck, your single biggest retirement expense, housing, nearly disappears. And that changes everything about a $1,500 month. West Virginia has been phasing out its tax on Social Security. The cost of living overall sits well below the national average, and a riverfront town with a real hospital and cheap utilities means your check covers the home, the heat, the doctor, and still leaves a little for the diner on Main Street. The catch is honest. Fewer jobs if you want part-time work. But for a paid-off retiree, that low cost of living is the entire point. Pro: astonishingly cheap homes, a beautiful riverfront, and warm, neighborly people. Con: the economy is slow, with fewer jobs if you need part-time work, and the winters are long and gray. Next, a frontier town that was once the literal edge of the lawless Wild West, now one of the friendliest places to retire in the South. Number 6. Fort Smith, Arkansas. In 1875, a judge named Isaac Parker took the bench in Fort Smith, right on the edge of the untamed Indian Territory, and over 21 years he sentenced so many men to the gallows that the whole nation came to call him the hanging judge. This was the last hard outpost before the lawless West, where deputy marshals rode out, and not all of them rode back. You can still stand at the restored courthouse and gallows today. That rough frontier town grew up into something gentle and genuinely retiree-friendly, sitting right on the Oklahoma border where the Arkansas River bends. And the money is the draw. Fort Smith has a low cost of living, and Arkansas has been steadily cutting taxes in a retiree-friendly direction, with Social Security income not taxed by the state at all. Affordable homes, plus a tax setup that leaves your check alone, is exactly the combination that makes $1,500 a month comfortable here. The texture is a walkable, restored historic downtown, full of brick and murals and trolley tracks. The green Washita foothills and lakes a short drive out for fishing and hiking, and a couple of solid regional hospitals right in town. It sits central. You can reach a lot of the country from here, and the tax angle is the quiet winner you should not skip over. Arkansas has spent the last few years steadily cutting its income tax rates. It fully exempts Social Security, and it gives a real exemption on other retirement income too. So the state takes a smaller and smaller bite every year you live there. Pair that with home prices well under the national average and a cost of living to match, and a retiree on $1,500 a month here is not just surviving. There is margin for the fishing license, the church group, the occasional steak. This is the kind of town where your money simply behaves itself. Pro: cheap, historic, tax-friendly, and well-located. Con: the summers run hot and the nightlife is quiet. This is calm, settled living, not a party town. Now, we step into the top 5, where $1,500 a month stops being about just surviving. Quick pause, and this is the part I told you not to skip, so stay with me. Everything so far has been about one thing, crushing the cost of living so the check covers it. But these last 5 towns do that and hand you something to actually enjoy: a great lake, year-round sun, a real downtown with a heartbeat. Because surviving on $1,500 a month and living on $1,500 a month are not the same thing, and number 1 is where that line disappears completely. Top 5. Here we go. Number 5. Tahlequah, Oklahoma. In 1839, at the brutal end of the Trail of Tears, the Cherokee Nation gathered in a green Oklahoma valley and chose this spot as their new capital, and Tahlequah has been the beating heart of the Cherokee Nation ever since. The old brick capital still stands on the square. The Cherokee language is still spoken and taught here, and the whole town carries a depth of living history you simply do not find in a brand new retirement subdivision. That history sits right alongside a college and a clear, cold river, which makes this one of the quiet gems of the whole list. On the money, Tahlequah pairs a low cost of living with some of the lowest property taxes in the entire country, because Oklahoma's property taxes are famously, genuinely low. Low home prices plus tiny property tax bills means more of your $1,500 a month stays free for living. The texture is gorgeous. The Illinois River runs right by town. People float it in the summer in inner tubes. Northeastern State University brings culture and a hospital and young energy, and the green Ozark foothills wrap the whole place. There is a university-affiliated medical center in town, with bigger Tulsa Care about an hour west. And the property tax angle deserves a second look, because it is the hidden killer of a lot of retirement budgets. In plenty of states, even a paid-off home keeps costing you thousands a year in property tax forever. But Oklahoma's property taxes are among the very lowest in the nation, and seniors here can qualify for assessment freezes that lock those bills down. So in Tahlequah, you can own your home outright, and the yearly cost of simply keeping it is genuinely tiny, which frees up a big chunk of that $1,500 for the river, the festivals, the everyday life. Add Oklahoma's retirement income exemptions on top, and the math gets friendly fast. Pro: very low taxes, a beautiful river, real culture, and college town amenities. Con: for big city shopping or major medical, you're driving to Tulsa, about an hour out. Next, a river town the United Nations itself singled out for its art, where 2 great rivers collide. Number 4. Paducah, Kentucky. In 1827, the explorer William Clark, yes, that Clark of Lewis and Clark, bought the land where the Tennessee River pours into the mighty Ohio and laid out a town he named Paducah. For a century, it was a rough and tumble river port, hit by floods and fires, until a quieter revolution arrived. Artists. The town offered free buildings to working artists willing to move in and restore the historic district. And it worked so completely that the United Nations named Paducah a UNESCO Creative City, one of only a handful in the whole country. So you've got a genuine arts town, full of galleries and restored homes, built where 2 great rivers meet. And it is cheap. On the money, Paducah carries affordable home prices, and Kentucky gives retirees real tax breaks, exempting a chunk of retirement income and not taxing Social Security at the state level. Low housing plus those retiree tax breaks is exactly why $1,500 a month works here. The texture is rich, a walkable, historic downtown with a famous flood wall covered in murals, the quilt museum that draws visitors worldwide, riverboats, and a serious regional hospital, so your health care is genuinely covered, which matters enormously at this budget. 4 real seasons here. And the Kentucky tax breaks are more generous than people realize, so let me spell them out. The state does not tax Social Security at all, and it exempts a meaningful slice of your other retirement and pension income from state tax as well, which for a typical retiree can mean owing the state very little or nothing. Verify. Layer that on top of Paducah's already low home prices and cost of living, and $1,500 a month covers a real home in a real arts town with a real hospital. The trifecta that is shockingly hard to find at this price. Verify. You are buying culture and safety, not just cheapness. Pro. Cheap, artsy, walkable, with a real hospital in town. Con. The winters are gray and cold, and it floods near the rivers, so you buy on higher ground. Next, a town minutes from one of the biggest lakes in America, in a state that takes zero income tax. Number 3. Paris, Tennessee. When this little West Tennessee town was founded back in 1823, they named it after Paris, France, as a thank you to the Marquis de Lafayette for helping America win its independence, and the town leaned all the way in. They built their own 65-foot Eiffel Tower, a backyard replica that locals will proudly tell you predates the one in Texas. But the real treasure here is not the tower. It is what sits just a few minutes east. Because Paris, Tennessee sits right on the doorstep of Kentucky Lake, one of the largest man-made lakes in the entire country, a fishing and boating paradise. And the town itself has modest, affordable home prices in a state with no state income tax at all. Cheap homes, plus zero income tax, plus a giant lake out the back door. That is a retirement that punches far above $1,500 a month. The texture is pure relaxed lake country life. The crappie fishing on Kentucky Lake is nationally famous. There is a classic Tennessee courthouse square downtown. The cost of living is well below average, and the summers are warm without the desert extreme. There is a local hospital in town for everyday needs. And here is where the no income tax thing really earns its keep, so do not gloss over it. Tennessee takes zero state income tax. None. So every cent of your Social Security, every cent of any pension or withdrawal lands in your account untouched by the state. Now, combine that with home prices well below the national average and a giant lake that turns your weekends free, and you have a retirement where the money goes further and the days are richer. On $1,500 a month in Paris, a modest paid-off home plus that untaxed check means the boat, the bait, and the lakeside cookout are not luxuries. They are just Tuesday. Pro. Incredible lake access, no state income tax, and genuinely cheap living. Con. It is small and rural, so for major medical you are looking at about an hour's drive to a bigger city. Next, a town of antebellum mansions perched on bluffs over the Mississippi River, soaked in the most dramatic history on this whole list. Number 2. Vicksburg, Mississippi. For 47 days in the summer of 1863, Vicksburg held out under siege, its citizens living in caves dug into the riverbank bluffs while the cannons roared, until the city finally fell on the 4th of July, a turning point of the entire Civil War, because whoever held Vicksburg held the Mississippi River, and the river was the spine of the continent. The town was so wounded that for 80 years it refused to celebrate Independence Day at all. Today, those same bluffs hold something extraordinary. Block after block of grand antebellum mansions, columns, and porches gazing out over the river. And the prices will stagger you. Because this is Mississippi, the most affordable state in the entire country, so those gorgeous historic homes sell for a fraction of what their beauty suggests, with a low cost of living wrapped around them. A scenic, history-soaked river town where the housing is this cheap is precisely how $1,500 a month buys a genuinely beautiful life. The texture is dramatic. The Vicksburg National Military Park wraps the city with monuments and old cannon. Riverboats still dock downtown. The Mississippi rolls past in full majesty, and there is a regional medical center in town. The history is everywhere you walk. And let me anchor the budget, because Vicksburg is almost unfair on value. This is the single most affordable state in the country, so a home with real character, high ceilings, a porch, a view of the river, can sell for a fraction of what a plain box costs in most of the nation, and Mississippi does not tax your Social Security or retirement income at the state level. That means on $1,500 a month, you are not settling for the worst house in a cheap town. You can actually own something beautiful, with history in its bones, and still have the check cover your groceries, your utilities, and your health care. Cheap and gorgeous almost never travel together. Here, they do. Pro. Astonishingly cheap, deeply scenic, and dripping with real history. Con. The summers are hot and humid, and in the rural reaches, healthcare access can vary. And then there is number 1, the town where the math finally, completely stops feeling like a struggle, and the check starts feeling like enough. Number 1. Athens, Tennessee. Here is a story almost nobody outside Tennessee knows. In 1946, returning World War II veterans in Athens, fed up with a corrupt local political machine rigging the ballot boxes, armed themselves and forced an honest vote in what history actually records as the Battle of Athens, ordinary citizens standing up and taking their town back. That is the spine of this place, a small, proud town that has always quietly insisted on doing things right. And tucked perfectly between 2 cities, that quiet pride is exactly what makes it the best retirement value on this entire list. Because Athens sits right between Chattanooga and Knoxville, so 2 real cities with major hospitals and airports are each under an hour away. And yet the town itself has a classic walkable courthouse square, a genuinely low cost of living, low home prices, and it sits in Tennessee, a state with no state income tax whatsoever. Now put that combination together, because this is the whole point of the video. No state income tax, so your entire check is yours. Low home prices, so housing barely touches the budget. A mild 4-season climate without the desert heat or the deep north cold. And real, serious health care just a short drive away in either direction. That exact combination, cheap homes, zero income tax, mild weather, real hospitals close by, is what finally makes $1,500 a month stop being a tightrope. Pro. No income tax, low cost, a charming, walkable square, and perfectly located between 2 cities. Con. The nightlife is quiet and the pace is slow. This is peaceful living, not a party. But for a retiree whose whole world is one modest check, a paid-off little home, no state income tax, and a town that still feels like a real community, that is not just affordable. That is dignity. The people quietly living this life out here figured out something the rest of the country somehow missed. So there it is. Desert sunshine, river towns in the cheapest states in America, antebellum mansions over the Mississippi, and a courthouse square in Tennessee where $1,500 a month actually, genuinely, works. Remember the thread. It always came down to those same 2 numbers, housing and taxes. And the towns that crushed both are the ones where the check finally feels like enough. So tell me down in the comments, could you live on $1,500 a month in the right town? Which of these 10 would you pick? And here is your reason to come back. Next week, I'm going to show you the everyday bills that millions of seniors are quietly overpaying every single month. Bills you may actually be exempt from and never have to pay again. You do not want to miss that one. Subscribe so it lands in your feed the moment it drops. And one last honest reminder, this is general information, not financial advice. So build your own real budget and verify every number for your own situation before you ever pack a box.